President Tinubu has been in office for about 6 months. So he's a captain on an aircraft. Difficult takeoff. Tough decisions, so he's got headwinds. So his plane is buffeting around. So all these simple errors I see that he has made, I hope he can correct it so he can get to cruising level. Because that's what we want, cruising level. He's on the climb out. And any pilot who understands what climb out means knows that that is the most difficult time for a pilot. Full attention. I don't know what President Tinubu was doing in Owerri. That was a waste of time to go to the inauguration of Senator, whoever he is in what do you call it, in Owerri. Focus, that's what it is. Focus on what you need to do. Leave all this sidetrack, wedding, book launch, and all that. Go to Aso Rock and do your work. 200 million Nigerians are not even interested in whether President Tinubu is the president or President Obi or who. What Nigerians want is a good life. That's all they want. I can tell you that. That's all they do not care who is the president. But please, President Tinubu, I appeal to you, if you're listening, take advantage of history. Mark your name so that the day we write the Nigerian story, when we come to this period, they'll say, there's a guy called President Tinubu. This guy was fantastic. That's what I pray for him to achieve, because the country has suffered too much.
I did a survey between 2018 and 2020 of 50 entities in Nigeria. 50 entities, both human and corporate entities, between 2018 and 2020. And I picked just one scheme, one species of fraud, which is called contract and procurement fraud. And I discovered that between 2018 and 2020, 3 years, Nigeria lost 2.9 trillion. 2.9 trillion. Now, when I put my figures together, I discovered that this money, if we had prevented it, would have given us 1,000 kilometers of roads. In addition to that, we would have built close to 200 standard schools, tertiary institutions. In addition to that, we would have educated about 6,000 children from primary to tertiary levels at 16 million per child. We would have delivered 20,000 units of 3-bedroom houses across the country, and even more. We would have given us a world-class teaching hospital in each of the 36 states of the Federation. This is where we are coming from. This is where we are.
I had it here. I was actually waiting for us to finish so that I would tell you. I've had it ever since that we have 10 billion.
Madam, you have a submission here. This is your submission.
Yes.
This is your documents.
Yes.
We are a house that deals with documents. We don't. The oral testimony cannot override whatever is not included here. And in the whole of your document, there is nowhere you indicate or indicated that you have a 10 billion naira sitting online somewhere that has not been used. Former permanent secretary and the current permanent secretary are affected by this motion to refund the sum of 75 billion naira back to the federal government as COVID-19 intervention fund, which, as far as we are concerned, has not been expended. Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, the permanent secretary, is hereby ordered to cause a refund of a sum of 75 billion naira back to the Federation account within 7 days and present documents to indicate such a refund.
Kukuruku, they don't break my country people. Now we'll come back again to Bod TV Bod. We will analyze all the trends where they happen. Country people, this is a dramatical era. Okay, we could continue our news. People don't they cry, they go meet Tinubu, say make it take also the man we put for Central Bank of Nigeria. The governor way they stand for there. They say since he entered that place, the naira they devalue every blessed day. My country people, the exchange rate is alarming. In fact, as we dey talk right now, now you go pounds on. Pounds is almost 2,000 naira per 1 pound. Oh, 1 pound they give you almost 2,000 naira. Hey, my country people, this who go save us? Oh, who go save us? Hey, my country people. As we dey try to wrap our head around this whole matter, now they will constantly hear say the Nasarawa governor wey tribunal favor. He can't go dey thank Tinubu. This is what we are saying. Oh, Jesus Christ. He go dey thank Tinubu, say he do well wey be say e take win. So wetin dey happen here? Wetin dey happen? So Tinubu in all this Nigeria problem, this whole crisis never still do am. You see, they get time till they call Supreme Court, make they favor in your party. I don't understand. So the Nasarawa governor, he can't dey thank Tinubu, say he do well, where the Supreme Court take rule to in favor. Una see and say corruption, it go hard to erase for Nigeria. It will be very difficult for Tinubu to fight corruption. In fact, every finger we point at him. Why this man can't dey thank Tinubu? That is the question. If Tinubu not pull a call through, my country people. Now this one I can't make this man where they call Edwin Clark come talk say Buhari carry Nigeria go 50 years backward when he ruled for only 8 years. He said this Tinubu on when they see so hey, he said go carry Nigeria back to 100 years. My country people, APC not go keep person. This one there, he now silent war, silent one. Things not they okay oh. Nigerians are suffering. Now one person, the money where they give Nigerians for palliative for during COVID. Now one person can't talk saying they still get 10 billion where they keep aside. But I'm not writing for a document say 10 billion still remain for the money where they give una. See, out of everything, they can't find out say over 75 billion naira still remain for that COVID-19 palliative. My country people, is this not wickedness? People are dying. No medical, nothing is working. People are dying. Yet, we are still able to record 75 billion naira. Chai.
In the wake of the scandal rocking the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry, which led to the suspension of its minister, Dr. Betta Edu, and the investigation of her predecessor, Sadia Umar Farouk, a video of the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ola Olukoyede, when he appeared before the Senate for screening, has surfaced online. In the video, the chairman said the sum of 2.9 trillion naira meant for some government projects was diverted for personal use by contractors between 2018 and 2020. Adding that the stolen funds during the period under review would have been useful for government projects if the anti-corruption agency under the past administration had prevented the funds from being diverted.
I did a survey between 2018 and 2020 of 50 entities in Nigeria, 50 entities, both human and corporate entities, between 2018 and 2020. And I picked just one scheme, one species of fraud, which is called contract and procurement fraud. And I discovered that between 2018 and 2020, 3 years, Nigeria lost 2.9 trillion. 2.9 trillion. Now, when I put my figures together, I discovered that this money, if we had saved, if we had prevented it, would have given us 1,000 kilometers of roads. In addition to that, we would have built close to 200 standard schools, tertiary institutions. In addition to that, we would have educated about 6,000 children from primary to tertiary levels at 16 million per child. We would have delivered 20,000 units of 3-bedroom houses across the country, and even more. We would have given us a world-class teaching hospital in each of the 36 states of the Federation. This is where we are coming from. This is where we are. Where we are going to go depends on the decision we take this afternoon. Thank you very much.
All right, we can see here the EFCC chair during his screening. He has remained resilient. If you recall, he has talked about the fact that he is sparing no one in any of these allegations. No one is above the law. Well, in the meantime, the chairman has also raised the alarm that the quest for bribes by EFCC investigators has become too embarrassing. He made the comments during his New Year address to the agency on Thursday. Olukoyede said the major objective of the war against corruption and financial crimes globally is to drive economic development, to create job opportunities for the populace, adding that public opinion about the conduct of some EFCC investigators are adverse, and called on the investigators to show integrity and discipline. He further warned that he will not hesitate to wield the big stick against any form of infraction by any staff of the commission. Well, All of this is coming as the House of Representatives Public Accounts Committee has ordered the Ministries of Health and the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Investment to refund unutilized funds meant to mitigate the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. The committee gave the order during its investigative hearing, stating that the total sums, of which amounts to 600 billion naira, have not been utilized.
It's very, very, very important. For those who haven't come and haven't sent in any communication to show that they had a justifiable reason for not coming, we will be taking a position that those issues in investigation are resolved against them.
I had it here. I was actually waiting for us to finish so that I would tell you. I've had it ever since that we have 10 billion. But
Madam, you have a submission here. This is your submission.
Yes.
This is your documents.
Yes.
We are a house that deals with documents. We don't. The oral testimony cannot override whatever is not included here. And in the whole of your document, there is nowhere you indicate or indicated that you have a 10 billion naira sitting or lying somewhere that has not been used. Former permanent secretary and the current permanent secretary are affected by this motion to refund the sum of 75 billion naira back to the federal government as COVID-19 intervention fund, which, as far as we are concerned, has not been expended. Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, the permanent secretary, is hereby ordered to cause a refund of a sum of 75 billion naira back to the Federation account within 7 days and present documents to indicate such a refund unfailingly.
The former president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Olisa, who was on our nightly news program Primetime, charged President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to summon the courage to confront Nigeria's social, political and economic problems by embarking on major constitutional reforms. He said Tinubu must crush those against Nigeria's democracy.
I would re-emphasize that President Tinubu must crush the evil. These are devils that are stalling Nigeria and making us look foolish. He has to crush the people who don't want democracy. That's my view.
All right.
I don't care if you like it or not. That is my view. I know you're not happy I'm using strong words, but this is the time to use strong words.
Yeah.
Democracy or not democracy, we have suffered enough. We have suffered enough in this country.
Yeah.
How can I pay my driver 100,000? No, please listen to me. How can I pay my driver 100,000 for him to buy rice of 60K? Because we have people in Abuja stuffing all our money. The nonsense must stop. The nonsense must stop. And the president of Nigeria must be the person to lead this crusade in the context of a constitutional process. That is what I'm saying to you.
SAN Olisa Agbakuba couldn't have said it any better. The nonsense has to stop. Yes.
The nonsense, the wickedness.
Yes.
The French will call it machin. The madness must stop in this country.
Absolutely.
Because you see, the madness too that also makes it very funny when you see family relative of the president going on an official assignment with him must stop. The madness of the entourage must stop. The madness of deficit, but humongous budget deficit and printing of money through ways and means must stop. The madness of corruption. Apparently all the monies that we took, you know what hurts me the most about that money? We took those monies at loan, special drawing rights. We printed money, that's what's causing inflation today, and people have the nerve to steal it. Look at that person talking at the House of Rep. She wasn't even decent enough to put forward the money. She said it on interrogation. That madness must stop. The contra scam must stop. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala wrote a full book on contra scam. There's a part of it called judgment debt, where people will ensure that government does not do the contracts so that they can take government to court. It's civil servants too that will take government to court, connive with the contractors, collect judgment debt for them. There's one of them. Secondly, then the contract scam itself. They go there for the contract, they inflate the contract. That one they get 20 or 30%. They inflate the contract, they don't even get to do it in the end. The third one, they deliberately stall on the contract. They do not do it so that at the end of the year, they will use mago to retire the money to their own pockets and private accounts. That's part of the things you are seeing that's happening now that is coming to light. That's why you see that COVID-19 money, when people were suffering and crying for palliative, come on, Indomie, they couldn't give them but billions in government purse. Yeah. And if they didn't ask questions, they were looking for a way to colobi that money and put it in their colobi pocket or send it abroad in their accounts. The madness must stop. The madness in the civil servant. That's what the EFCC chief is saying. The madness of EFCC interrogators must stop. 2.9 trillion in 3 years. And that's why I've always argued against a big budget, because we still are wasting money. Nigeria does not need a 28 trillion budget. Half of the money is stolen. Yeah. If 2.9 trillion can be stolen in a space of 3 years, look at the naira to the value dollar, look at the price of that 2.9 trillion, what it can do, over 1,000 kilometers of road, healthcare institution and all of that. And people do not see the dividends of democracy because some people are stealing the money and you're giving humongous money. Just cut the budget so that we have a small amount, then we all share that amount and we have financial fiscal discipline. Because we are printing money, we are wasting money, we are stealing the money, and you say people are not. And when we talk, they say they're emotional, they're emotional. If you don't see the price of destruction in your country and you don't talk about it, you are worse than a fool yourself. Yeah. Because this country has gone down the drain. Oji, in the late 80s, they used to make a joke that an Alhaji from Cotonou said he was giving his Nigerian babe or girlfriend 1 million. But the babe did not know that the money is 1 million CFR. Because 1 million CFR then was 16,000 naira. Oji, today, CFR is more than the naira. It is close to 2 to 1. It's 1.6 to 1. 1 million CFR, that used to be 16,000 naira today. 200,000 CFR is close to 500,000 naira. And we are sitting on a keg of gunpowder. We are not telling ourselves the truth. I feel pain for this country. Yeah. I feel pain for this country. And they don't even listen when we say these things.
The Vice President, Kashim Shettima, who is in Davos for the World Economic Forum, during an interview with Dr. Ruben Abati on Thursday, said that the Nigeria delegation did not go to Davos to beg for funds. Rather, that the delegation went to dialogue with investors on a fair and balanced, mutually beneficial relationship, and that Nigeria is not a poor nation, eliciting reactions. Let's take a look before we take some reactions.
We are not a poor nation by any standard. We are not a poor continent. We want to deal with people on a pedestal of equality. We do not come to the West with a begging bowl, no. We want to deal with them on mutually beneficial terms, because ours is the richest continent in the world. The whole countries of Europe, their resources are not up to the resources in the Democratic Republic of Congo. This is why I said we carry our poverty with dignity. We are not here. Wherever we go to have mutually beneficial relationships with Western nations and with Western entities.
Well, I think he spoke very well. I think a lot of Nigerians misunderstood his point here. I think he was talking in terms of resources, that Nigeria and Africa at large are rich with resources. But let me take a rhetoric from, some Nigerians on social media, which is almost a general rhetoric. This is from Hudi, who wrote, "Wrong. Nigeria is a very poor nation. As a matter of fact, the poverty capital of the world. Why? Because how poor a nation is cannot be measured by the natural resources in it, but how poor the people are. The same way a professor might have so much knowledge and still be poor, a country can have riches underground and still forever be poor. Wisdom does not only cover knowledge, but the application of it, which amounts to understanding." Rufai, a minute before we take our
final Nigeria is potentially rich does not mean that it's been able to make that potential kinetic. Life is not about what you have, but what you do with what you have. People go to school to get a degree. Mm-hmm. Why? So that they can use the degree in exchange for a job. You can as well get that university degree and decide to sit in your house and not use it for anything. Mm-hmm. That's the way life is. So how can our leaders activate the potential of the resource we have to make us rich?
Yeah.
In conclusion, Darren Asamoglu, the man that wrote the book Why Nations Fail, was asked a question: why do nations fail? His answer was, nations fail because their leaders make them fail. The reason why Nigeria has been failing, the reason why Nigeria is poor, monetary terms today, is because of our leaders.
President Tinubu is being faced with the challenges of nationhood at a time where some of the things that he had canvassed in the past would need to be seen fully being displayed through his governance skills. But of course, you and I know that there's only little that the president can do when majority of some of these reforms that you've advocated have to come out from the National Assembly. So how can we provide a synergy between the president and the National Assembly to ensure that what you're advocating actually sees the light of day?
Right. So I'll start by saying that President Tinubu is the sovereign leader of Nigeria, and he exercises the power of political leadership by virtue of Section 5 of the Constitution. So the buck stops at his table. Yeah, the National Assembly is there, but it's the president that will shape issues. And I will give two examples of how past leaders have shaped issues. One would be Roosevelt during the Great Depression in America when he launched the New Deal, and of course Margaret Thatcher with her Big Bang Theory. So everything is on President Tinubu. And in my talk with him 2 weeks ago, I reemphasized all the issues that would be needed to be confronted. Leadership is not an easy thing. Leadership is not a tea party. Let me start by criticizing the president. He had no reason to go to Owerri. It was unnecessary. That was a local thing. I would recommend to President Tinubu to spend time, quality time, leading Nigeria. Now, if you don't spend quality time cooking okra soup, the okra soup will be bad. You've got to do things in the right way. I don't see what he was doing in Owerri. He should have been spending time looking at the issues of insecurity, lack of proper structure for the Constitution and all that. So that's part of what it has to be. We need to have, and I believe that President Tinubu can rise to the occasion because I know him very well. And when I spoke with him, I reminded him that we both live on Bodilon. So here is what it is. President Tinubu needs to put his best foot forward to govern the country. If he does that, in 4 years, he can turn things around. But there are certain critical things he would need to do. The first thing is to say, what's the Constitution? If, for instance, me and my wife Lillian don't agree in our marriage of 45 years, then we can't do anything. So the first thing that President Tinubu would need to do is to ensure that Nigerians all agree to be one country. You recall that Bola Ige asked those two questions. Do we want to be one? It's not by force. If we want to be one, how? We haven't answered those questions, which is why I told President Akpabio of the Senate that it has taken 23 years to solve the problem of the Constitution. And I urged him, in conjunction with President Tinubu, to resolve the Nigerian constitutional question now by inviting the owners of Nigeria. The owners of Nigeria, mark you, were those who owned Nigeria before Lugard brought his amalgamation in 1914. Call them in. These are the people who own the country, and ask them questions. What do you want to see of the Constitution? Because without a Constitution, we're going nowhere. And no one will doubt the fact that the Constitution bequeathed by the military in 1999 is unsatisfactory. You can't build anything out of a weak foundation. The economic development policy of President Tinubu, the political development policy of President Tinubu, and everything else he wants to do rests on a very solid foundation. So let him immediately resolve that. How can we spend 23 years looking for a foundation for building a house? Does that make sense to anybody? So that's my number one issue. We need to resolve this issue of, do we want to be one? And mark you, the flip side of the question is that we mustn't be one, because Yugoslavia, which was 6 countries under Marshal Tito, when he died, decided to break apart. And today, a lot of them are very strong countries: Macedonia, Croatia, Slovenia, Slovakia. They're all doing well. So there is no sacrosanctity about Nigeria being one country. There's none. I personally would wish for Nigeria to be one country, but we must agree. Now, that is the problem. Because we have not agreed, and because the National Assembly has appropriated to itself the all-knowing wisdom of giving us a constitution, that is the weakness. So that's the starting point.
Dr. Agbakoba, I mean, sometimes when some of these issues are raised, I actually have problems with the decision by activists like you to call for a total discarding of the 1999 Constitution, because some activists like you have also said in the past that this document was the product of the 1979 Constitution, and in 1999, it was just a few amendments that were added to the 1999 Constitution.
No. Don't put words into my mouth. I did not say that. I simply said we need a constitution. I also said that there's a National Assembly. So I recognize the role of the National Assembly to give us a constitution. What I'm criticizing is the length of time that the National Assembly is taking to reach a decision. 23 years is too long a time for the National Assembly to come to a conclusion. That's my point. I recognize the National Assembly by Section 4, subsection 1 of the Constitution as a sovereign parliament, and that is the takeoff point. What I don't understand is why it is taking 23 years to give us a constitution. It's like a woman who is pregnant for 23 years. So my point is, let us quickly resolve. And I'm happy I had the chance to speak to both President Tinubu and President Akpabio about the need to quickly resolve this problem, because that's the key. If we resolve the Constitution and agree what we want to do, and that agreement may be we want to go to pieces. There's nothing wrong with that. But I would prefer, personally, that we agree to be one country, because I like a big country like Nigeria. So that's what I'm saying. So I was an activist several years ago. 29 years and 71 years is a very long time. So Sambo, do not think I haven't grown in all these years. Of course, I've matured. I have more wisdom than when I was 29. So I cannot be talking about, going to the streets and fighting. I'm an older man. So wisdom comes to the table. I'm a wise man today. So I will use my wisdom to advise my younger people on the streets that this is the way to go. We all accept the parliamentary sovereignty of the National Assembly. What we quarrel with is that they are too slow in resolving Nigeria's constitutional arrangements. I don't think you'll have any problem with that, Sambo.
Yeah, I mean, it's so good to hear you talk about that.
You can't.
I want you to clarify, Dr. Agbakoba, if we are going to get a new constitution, aren't we going to discard the old one? Or the piecemeal amendments that we see from the National Assembly? Isn't it enough?
No. You're putting words in my mouth. I didn't say we should discard the Constitution. I'm simply saying the National Assembly should conclude constitutional discussions. That's what I'm saying. I didn't mention discard the Constitution. There's a Constitution that we have. Unfortunately, Nigerians haven't bought into it. But we have a sovereign parliament that can assist the process. They can call the traditional rulers, they can call Afenifere, Pandef, and all that to say, what are your views? So personally I accept the authority of the National Assembly in constitution making. What I don't accept is the fact that they are taking too much time. I'm sure you will agree that 23 years to resolve our constitution is far too long, because it's holding everything up. It's holding economic issues, it's holding political development.
And some will say that what we need is continuous reforms, because the majority of the provisions in the 1999 constitutions were actually carried over from the 1979 constitution, which was chaired by then Rotimi Williams, and majority of those provisions were as a result of the outcome of a constituent assembly, which was a gathering of all Nigerians.
Sure.
And so it was just a few things that were added to the 1999 Constitution. And so if we are to do all of that, what specific aspects will you be saying that you have problems with in the National Assembly's lack of decision, as you have put it, to amend the Constitution to give Nigerians what exactly they want, since this document is a product of previous agreement by the Nigerian people in 1979?
Sure. Good question. Now, the problem is this, and I said so in a press interview I did a couple of days ago. You may well find, when you gather the right people in the room, that they have no problem with the Constitution. You're very shocked. They have a problem of exclusion. You remember that it was Abdul Salam that invoked Decree number 24 that created this Constitution. So Nigerians, led by those who own it, the subnational entities and the Afenifere groups, are saying, we feel excluded. So I'm not saying that if you bring all these relevant players into the field, they may do something different from what we have today. The problem is the process. The problem is legitimacy. The problem is ownership. For instance, if I decide that my grandchild, Abrel, should have porridge, which actually happened 2 weeks ago, and she didn't want porridge, she wanted cereal. And I told the housemaid, give her cereal. Why would you impose porridge on a girl who wants cereal? That's the issue. The issue here is the exclusion of the relevant groups. And I'm sure when the relevant groups are consulted and they endorse the process, they might have a few things to say. Could you amend this? Could you add this? That's all that is required. It's piece of cake. But the problem is that the powers that be in Abuja sit in a caucus and exclude everybody. Whereas it is easier to invite these people and make it easier. You'll be very surprised, Sambo, if this, my formula, were to work, if the National Assembly were to invite all of the relevant stakeholders. It may take only a week to come to agreement, what has lasted 23 years. So that's the point I'm making.
Yeah, and
process is the problem.
All right.
The way
Very interesting indeed. I mean, I really love the 1 week that you said, because we already have several meetings that have been done in the past, including the 2014 National Conference, where documents are still lying fallow, and almost nothing has been done. But let's talk about some of your governance proposals. We've seen President Tinubu saying that he's trying to look at a $1 trillion economy, which makes me happy anytime I see that provision. But of course, he can't achieve it with the current structure that we have at the moment. Talk to us about the sort of fiscal restructuring that we need as a nation to be able to attain that, for the president to be able to attain that vision in the next 7 years, if he's able to do that.
Sure. So what I'll say, because my special educational field is a very narrow one in law, which is called governance. So what governance does as a governance specialist, so I bring my diagnostics and I put it over Nigeria to see what's wrong. What's wrong is that the structure of Nigeria is very weak. So imagine a 20-story building with an architect coming to look at it, and he can detect this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem, and he says, if you don't do this, the entire structure will come down. So that's my field. So the first governance problem I see is political governance, meaning that unless we have political arrangements and agreements, then we can't go to the second issue of constitutional governance. So what happened in Europe was very interesting in 1871. There was a guy called Maximilian, and he discovered that Europe had been fighting a war between the Catholics and the Protestants for 80 years. And he said, we're killing ourselves. So we're doing here. The other day in Abuja, 100 people were killed. So we need to have peace. Without peace, we're going nowhere. So I would recommend political governance around this discussion of peace. I've told Mr. President and President Akpabio, and I was happy that the National Security Advisor was present, we are not going to win the insurgency by military solution. You, Sambo, very well experienced, I know you very well, you know how much the government has devoted in terms of budgeting to the military. What we see is money goes to the military, it is misused, the service chiefs are sacked, new ones come in, and it goes on, but no solution. We are not going to win the insurgency war by military option. We are going to win the problem of insurgency and insecurity by discussion. Nnamdi Kanu has no reason to be in jail. The guys in Lagos, Ibadan, or Northwest, or wherever, you've got to call them to a peace meeting and resolve this problem. If you think you're going to shoot these people out, then look at what America did in Vietnam and lost. Look at all the wars. Look at Che Guevara's war. Irregular war, but he won in Bolivia. Look at what happened in Cuba. So the first point I want to make is the military solution to Nigeria's problem will fail. It's going to, how many years now since Jonathan? It's going to about 10 years. We spent billions, no results. So why can't we try something new? Just for the heck of it, because Olisa Awakwa is saying it. Try something new. Bring in people who own Nigeria and say, how can we resolve this problem? You will see a difference. That is the first important point I'd like to make. Let us forget the issue of using military solution to resolve this insurgency conflict. It will not work. I say this because in 1980, I studied counterinsurgency in SOAS, which is a school in the University of London Systems. And I studied over 100 wars over the last 500 years. Not one single war was won when fighting irregular people. Mao Zedong won his war in China by using irregular tools. So you can't beat these guys with arms. You know, Sambo, that Nigeria has poured a lot of money into this war. Why are they not winning? What's the reason they're not winning? Tell me. So let's try something new. And what I'm offering is dialogue. What is Nnamdi? Why are you laughing? What is Nnamdi Kanu doing in jail?
Yeah, I mean...
What is he in jail? Nothing. It's just making him a superstar. It's just making him a superstar.
Is the fear
Call him out from jail and sit him on the table.
Dr. Agbakoba, it's actually the fear among the political elite that if we have a newly restructured Nigeria, it could actually take power away from them. And so there's a morbid fear within the political class to continue to maintain the status quo at the moment and manage it like we usually say in our parlance. But for how long do you think we can continue to manage this?
Brilliant question to which I have no answer. I don't have an answer to that question because you are quite right. Those who are in the room chopping, why should they invite new people? That's the dilemma. That is the dilemma. But you know what? Great leaders are the ones who say, you know what? We will do something different. And as a Catholic, let me cite to you the example of John the Baptist. He would have marginalized Jesus Christ because he was bigger. He was the known prophet. He had all the disciples. But he said to himself, you know what? I'm going to diminish myself to raise a new leader. So the person to whom I'm hoping change will come is actually President Tinubu. Your question is pertinent. The guys in the room, why should they invite new people? But what does President Tinubu at 71 or 72, about my age, what does he lose? What else does he want? 8 years as a successful governor of Lagos State, currently Nigeria's president, doesn't he want to leave his name in the sands of time? Like Roosevelt, like Churchill, like Margaret Thatcher as a great leader. I would hope that that is what he wants to achieve. Now, if that is correct, then all what you are saying will be child's play. He will just dismantle the structures. And I'm still hoping, I haven't lost hope in President Tinubu, and I hope that he is listening, and I do hope that he will crush all those enemies of progress, put them in their place, and say, you know what? I want a new Nigeria. I want, when I finish my first 4 years, people will say, this is a great president. That's what I wish for him.
Yes, and there are actually some very structural defects in the system that we have at the moment. And people have been advocating for state police, for example, fiscal federalism, restructuring, and all of that. But some people who are analyzing President Tinubu's body language say, from the behavior of some of the institutions and ministers under him, it looks like there's already a subtle restructuring that's ongoing. And that's why institutions like CBN, for example, are moving some departments to Lagos. We hear the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria is being moved to Lagos. And we hear that there are plans to actually bring a solid minerals police. And then, of course, you also have marine police being strengthened. And then, of course, other policing mechanisms. Do you think that he can actually focus on his administrative powers alone to do some of these structural reforms, or he must actually go back to the National Assembly for lasting reforms?
No, everything rests with President Tinubu. And I don't make the mistake that I don't understand the gravity of the issues that you are raising. I do. But you see, that was what Thatcher did when she came to power. The labor unions in the UK were so strong that they could determine the number of hours people worked. At the time Thatcher came to power, the labor unions had reduced the United Kingdom to a 3-day working week. But Mrs. Thatcher said no. And when the issues became so tough in Parliament, and even her own members of Parliament were saying, Madam, this is going too much, she made a very famous speech, which if you haven't read, I would urge you to go and read. And the punchline was, she says, this lady is not for turning. Meaning that I have taken upon myself a clear vision of what I want to do, and I'm going to change. It is in the hands of President Tinubu to turn Nigeria around, nobody else. The chief executive officer of this country is President Tinubu, nobody else. So all the examples you give are well taken. But it is up to President Tinubu to say to everybody around him, I am the commander-in-chief. I am the chief of state. Please go and sit down. What I want to do, come on, Sambo. I'm sure you're a married man. In your house, don't you set the rules? Don't you set your rules? Who can come to my house and set my rules? My maid or my driver? I'm in charge of my house. So the president is in charge of Nigeria. Nobody can mess with me in my house. I will set the rules. I'll be fair, treat people rightly, but I will say, here's how I want to go. So President Tinubu, who is a good friend of mine, I urge him to exercise the full powers vested in him by Section 5 to turn the country. People are all suffering. People are dying.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure he can see that. So let him exercise the fullest powers given to him by the Constitution. Anyone that stands in his way, crush him.
All right.
Crush him, remove him.
Dr. Agbakoba, we're actually in a democracy, so the use of crush, some people may actually have a problem with that. But in 2017...
No, don't say that. I beg, Sambo, leave that one.
Okay.
Democracy requires the application of rules. I will apply the rules in the most effective way. Anyone who stands in in my way, I will crush.
Well,
I will crush. Democracy or no democracy.
Former President Buhari tried to do something like that, and there were lots of outcry here and there. And in 2017, there was this Southern Leaders of Thought coalition that was brought in place by Professor Ben Nwabueze, who is now late. And he has said that, look, these constitutional reforms that we're calling for is actually one that the National Assembly really needs to give a thought to. Because I drafted Section 2 of this constitution, and I know that the system is failing. And so the piecemeal approach to the constitutional amendment is not what we really want. We want a brand new constitution. And then, of course, there was Pronaco in the past by Anthony Enahoro. Now, as we try to round off this conversation, do you honestly think that Nigerians can be patient enough to birth a new constitution, considering how difficult it is to reach a consensus on basic issues in the country?
Nigerians have, in fact, been over-patient since 1960. I have been that you are talking to, I've been over-patient. I was 29 when I entered this thing. Now I'm 71. What do you want me to do? Till I go to my grave? We have to take tough decisions. We need to assist our president. And we hope that our president has the energy to do the right thing. When we understand our president has the energy to do the right thing, you'll be very surprised at the kind of people that will come. What is the right thing? It's simply to make people happy. It's simply to reduce the price of rice from 60K to 6K. That's all. You think Nigerians are difficult people? They're the easiest people to govern. But the problem is people in Abuja sit and make rules that don't suit us. So President Tinubu must confront that evil. He must fight them. He must crush them. You say you don't like the word crush. I will re-emphasize that President Tinubu must crush the evil. These are devils that are stalling Nigeria and making us look foolish. He has to crush the people who don't want democracy. That's my view.
All right.
I don't care if you like it or not. That is my view.
Dr. Agbakoba, just before I let you go,
say what you think. That's my view.
In 60 seconds, just before I let you go.
I know you're not happy. I know you're not happy. I'm using strong words, but this is the time to use strong words.
Yeah.
Democracy or not democracy, we have suffered enough. We have suffered enough in this country.
Yeah.
How can I pay my driver 100,000? No, please listen to me. How can I pay my driver 100,000 for him to buy rice of 60K? Because we have people in Abuja chopping all our money. The nonsense must stop. The nonsense must stop. And the president of Nigeria must be the person to lead this crusade in the context of a constitutional process. That is what I'm saying to you, Sambo.
And just before I let you go, Dr. Agbakoba, there have been talks here and there that President Tinubu is also not following what he has said in the past. That, for example, having a 48-member cabinet actually shows that he is not in sync with the realities of the country, cutting the cost of governance, and that most of his ministers just don't understand the times that Nigerians are in at the moment. And of course, you've seen scandals here and there.
Sure.
Would you be advocating for a cabinet reshuffle now that the president has got a Supreme Court affirmation, and which gives him the leverage to take crucial decisions, like you had said?
Let me put it this way. I'm not disappointed, but I would hope that, well, okay, let me backtrack. President Tinubu has been in office for about 6 months. So he's a captain on an aircraft. Difficult takeoff. Tough decisions, so he's got headwinds. So his plane is buffeting around. So all these simple errors I see that he has made, I hope he can correct it so he can get to cruising level. Because that's what we want, cruising level. He's on the climb out. And any pilot who understands what climb out means knows that that is the most difficult time for a pilot. Full attention. I don't know what President Tinubu was doing in Owerri. That was a waste of time to go to the inauguration of Senator, whoever he is in what do you call it, in Owerri. Focus, that's what it is. Focus on what you need to do. Leave all this sidetrack, wedding, book launch, and all that. Go to Aso Rock and do your work. And I am still prepared to say that I have some hope that President Tinubu will deliver. I will be disappointed if he doesn't. The cabinet is too large, a couple of mistakes, but let me say that these may be early decisions that may be better done. On the whole, I hope he will take charge of his government and exercise the power vested in him. No other person. There's no other person, no minister, no authority that President Tinubu needs. In particular, as he came to office without any IOUs. So I'll be most disappointed if President Tinubu does not achieve. There's no reason why he can't achieve. And I'm sure that, and I want to be positive, otherwise I'll be negative, because 200 million Nigerians are not even interested in whether President Tinubu is the president or President Obi or who. What Nigerians want is a good life. That's all they want. I can tell you that. That's all they do not care who is the president. But please, President Tinubu, I appeal to you, if you're listening, take advantage of history. Mark your name so that the day we write the Nigerian story, when we come to this period, they'll say, there's a guy called President Tinubu. This guy was fantastic. That's what I pray for him to achieve. Because the country has suffered too much.
Yeah.
You are suffering, I'm suffering.
This is Bod TV Bod. In case the first time you come here, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more uploads.